Hey there, welcome back to week 9. It's going to be a big class. So far we've covered 5 of the 12 principles. The classes are definitely going to start picking up in pace because we've been inadvertently dealing with a lot of the stuff that's going to be coming up. Some of this stuff is going to be kind of self-explanatory, stuff like arcs and exaggeration. They don't really need 1 hour classes each. But we are going to cover everything individually, even if it's just for a little bit. So today we're going to cover arcs, slow in, slow out, and timing. And so let's get going. Let's get started with arcs. Okay, so most organic objects move in an arced trajectory, and it's important to remember this to add realism to your work. If you don't have convincing arcs in your animation, it'll have a very robotic feel. When I did the teaser video for this class, I was trying to figure out a way to show arcs, so I had Squishy swinging on a rope, which is kind of lame and obvious because if a rope is tied off at one end, an arc is the only way that it can move. So we've covered the bouncing ball, we've covered bouncing over the floaters on the Squishy River. We're going to take a look at arcs now in some of the less obvious places that you'll stumble across them. Okay, so here's Simple Guy. I was going to do this with Squishy Box, but I don't know, I got a feeling once this training's over, you're more likely to face a character like this than Squishy. So while we could do this principle with him, I figure it might be a little bit cooler to keep trucking along with Simple Guy. So yeah, let's keep using Simple Guy. Plus he looks awesome. I just threw on a couple of eyeballs here. They're just 2 spheres. You can do this if you want, and I just parented them to this head controller here, so if we rotate them, they'll follow. I put them on also because his head looks the same from every direction, so sometimes if you're trying to do looking, it's tough. It's nice to have some eyes there to kind of help. Okay, let's switch this to local. There's some drama happening over here, and he's checking it out, and then he hears a big bang, and he looks over to the other side. So, with your Simple Guy selected, I'm just going to key him on frame 1. Pop open the graph. We can see we got all our keys here. Okay, so now I'm going to go to I'll go to 30. It's going to be a slow rotation. So I'm going to set this to world. You might be like, okay, if he's got to rotate, I'll just rotate the Y channel here, and then I'll rotate the head. Yeah, maybe his torso a little bit. Local for there. Okay, so I'll key that. And there we go. So here's our sound. Bang! What's that? Now, this is usually what you do when you start getting into animation. It's like 1, 2. And unless someone told me that this was wrong, I would never know. Everything arcs. All motion arcs, unless you're a hydraulic robot. So even for a motion like this, actually no, I'm going to just bump them over a little bit. So it's just the world and just kind of nudge them. I'll nudge them this way. So if you look at this, you're like, okay, he's kind of looking over there. It's kind of an organic movement. It's got a nice slow in and a slow out. But we're going to do some diagnostics on this. So select this one, motion path. I'm going to add a motion path, and you're going to want to keep this on so we can see them all the time, and then I'll just drag this out to whatever, longer than the shot. So I'm going to grab the middle of the chest here, same thing, motion path, add motion path. Oh, it's down here. So I'll set the draw scale down, put the keys up to whatever, and keep it on. And then for the head as well, select the head, motion path, add a motion path. Have to refresh this to get it out. The draw scale at the bottom here is getting cut off, and then I'll just drag this out and keep that to on. I'm going to turn off my locators for a sec. So now if you look, you can see what's happening here. We've got these 3 pieces animating. And that's pretty cyborg. That's a pretty unnatural motion. And when you first start out in animation, you'd be tempted to do this because, you know, he's looking here, he's looking there, and what's wrong with that? This is one of those places where you need to throw in some arcs. So we're going to go to the middle here. I'll turn my locators back on. If I select the hip control here and push this down, you start seeing we get a little bit of an arc in here. We're also getting it in the top now because this is just getting pulled down. I'm gonna rotate this a little bit. You can see this has got a nice arcing motion now from the top. And the head has a little bit of an arc on it now as well because we've pulled the body down. Now, even with an adjustment as subtle as this, the motion will feel a lot more organic. So I'll turn this off, turn off the locators. Now watch what happens when he looks over. It's a very subtle thing, but it's a very human thing. It makes everything feel more realistic. Like, do we move this much? Maybe not. But we definitely don't move straight. So I'll bring these back. We can keep messing with this. Okay, there. Push them down even more. This motion path tool is really good for this sort of thing. Oop. See, I blew it there. I went one key past, so that's not good. So we'll delete that. Go back a frame. Now we'll do it. You can see we're stretching out our arc there. There we go. This is one of those things you would never think to add an arc into, so looking left to right. There you go, just with that little subtle motion. There's no offsets in this or overlaps or anything like that, but you can see how much better it makes the motion just by throwing in some arcs on the body parts. Okay, so up until this point, pretty much all our stuff with Simple Guy has been done with FK, which stands for forward kinematics. That's the rotation of the joints, kind of like a stop motion puppet. Some animators, though, they prefer to animate with IK, which is inverse kinematics, which means the joint rotation is calculated from an end effector at the end of the joint chain. So while our arms have been working like this to rotate, inverse kinematics works like this. So if you push down, the legs get rotated by the IK solver. Okay, so now for the most part, I prefer animating FK from the waist up, because if you look at it, the body is pretty much just a collection of socket joints and hinges. And it's very easy to get this type of motion with FK. However, IK is really important if you need to plant your hands on anything. Imagine if you had to put your hands on a table, say, and then rotate the waist. Oh, the hand's done. Okay, now I gotta animate the hand up again. Okay, then he's gonna bend down a little bit more. Oh, okay, I gotta animate the hand up again to keep it level on the table. And that's no way to work. So that's what IK is really good for. But some guys actually prefer doing all their work with IK. And IK is not really good at making good arcs. Arcs come naturally to FK because everything is swinging from its pivot point. But in IK, you'll see that's not the case. So to access the IK for Simple Guy's arms, if you click this little ring here, there's the IK blending. So if you just drag this over, you'll see that the arm switches from IK to FK. And you've got a new control here. Now we're no longer dealing with rotations. Now we're pulling the arm by the wrist to get the posing. And you can rotate the wrist here. So that's a local. Okay, so let's take a look at the difference between the two systems. I'm going to select this arm here. I'll just go to 15. I'm going to rotate it. And I'll go to 30. And you can see with FK, I'm just doing 15 frame intervals here, I get all my arcs for free. Very nice natural motion. So I'll select this one here, just 15. There. Follow through. Add a little bit of an overlap here. Okay, here you go. So you get the idea. So, okay, nice and simple, nice organic motion. Now we'll go to the IK arm to do this. Okay, so I'm going to go frame 15. I'll pull the arm back. You want to try and match that other arm. So then I'll go to frame 30 and I'll pull this over to here. That's kind of the same. And 45, go back, push this here. So you can see it's quick to grab the end of the arm and just put it wherever you want it and have all the upstream rotations, shoulder and elbow, kind of sorted for you. But in a second you're going to see why it's kind of a bummer. Okay, let's key that. So now one's very organic and easy to achieve, and the other one now, because we've taken rotation out of the equation, we're only translating this. So now we don't have those nice perfect arcs. So this is another place you have to be real conscious of your arcs, is with using IK. So to sort this, we can add a motion path. At the bottom here, I'm going to turn my draw scale down, and I'm going to just scale this up, and we'll leave it to on. And you can see what's happening. Just back and forth, back and forth. So to sort this arc out, we'd have to put more poses in here. So we could go in the middle here. In the middle of this one, pull this one down. That'll be up and then down. And it's also very hard to get good overlaps with IK. Because you can see we're kind of sorting out some arcs here. But they're not pretty. And you need a lot of massaging to get them right. So there are going to be times when you need IK and FK in the same shot, and that's why you're able to animate the switch. So usually for acting stuff, you'll have the arms up in the air, and then as the character leans forward to put his hands on the table, you'll switch to the IK arms, and then you'll lock them off. He'll do his business, he'll lean over, he'll yell at the suspect with both hands planted firmly. You can animate the torso, and the hands will stay locked, just like how the feet work. Then you'll switch the IK switch off, go back to FK, pull the hands back up, But at that moment, you got to be mindful of your arcs because you're not going to get free arcs because you're translating your control around. The legs have it too. If I select this control here, you can see we could switch to an FK foot. And now if I move the hips up and down, see the leg is just going through the floor. It's not working the same as it used to. This is great if you want to have your character get thrown out of a moving bus or fall off a building. You can get a really nice pendulum motion as he's flying, right? Because if you want to ragdoll, you'd rather do it with this than trying to animate IK legs. But as soon as your character hits the ground, you want to switch back to IK so you can get the goodness of this leg. So yeah, IK is definitely a place you want to be mindful of your arcs because you don't get them for free. So slow in and slow out is the time needed for an object to get up to speed and also to come to a stop. In 2D animation, slow in and slow out is something you have to be really aware of because you have to do it yourself, manually. In 3D, you just set a key and you get your slow in and slow out for free, unless you set your curve to linear. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is one of those principles we're not going to spend a ton of time on because I think it's pretty self-evident by now. We've been dealing with slow in and slow out since pretty much the first class. I'll often call it easing, like I ease into the pose, or settle. So in 2D animation, if you're going to animate this ball going across the screen and back, you would draw your circle, draw the ball, and you'd kind of evenly space it to get it to go across. And then if you want it to come back, you'd trace those and bring it back, right? Very evenly spaced. Now if you wanted to have an ease on it, it would have to start off slow, so the drawings would have to be closer together. Right? So you'd start like this, and then it'd slowly pick up speed, and then they would come to a stop. And then they come back. There you go. Now if you put them together side by side, you could see the difference between the two. It's the same, I guess, key poses. They both get to their locations at the same time, but you can see how they ease and they ease out of those poses. The top one is perfectly linear. The bottom one has a slow in, slow out. So if you watch this animation, it's very ping pong, very robotic. And if you watch this one, you see how it has an ease. If you watch them together, and this is what the graphs look like in MODO, right? So linear across the top, it'll hit at frame 40. That's the peak right here in the middle. You can see the bottom one has an ease in and an ease out. And then it'll start to head backwards to its starting position. And then they hit the same spot again at frame 80. So again, this is what they look like. One with a slow in, slow out, one without. If your animation doesn't have any eases in it, you're going to end up with a very Mr. Roboto kind of motion, which is awesome if you're doing it on purpose. The trick is knowing when to use eases and when not to. So here's a simple guy with a bunch of ridiculous poses. Let's check them out. Dogo arigato, Mr. Roboto. So this is all linear, and you can see it's just pop, 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 pop. Okay, so we'll stop that. If you remember last week, you can change the interpolation of a whole actor, or in the actions. So this is linear. Let's set this to curve. Let's go back, and let's take another look at it. There's no overlaps or anything. This is just like random keys just doing whatever, but you can see there's a big difference between Mr. Roboto and Mr. Smoothie Pants. Okay, so I'm pretty sure by now you get the whole concept of slow in, slow out, or ease, or settle. We'll just do a couple quick rapid fire ones just to hammer it home. So right here we got a sign, it's in a hurricane, and it gets hit by a flying brick. So does it ease in, does it ease out? What happens? So let's hit play. Boom. Just a hard hit. So let's check out our graph. You can see here, if we look at our rotate X, it's just a linear hit, no ease, get bang, and gets knocked down. We could even break that if we could even bend this if we wanted to. So there's no ease, and boom, straight to the ground. And there's just a little bounce at the end there. Bang. Okay, close this up. Our next example. Spin the bottle. Do we ease into that? Do we ease out of it? How does this look? Starts off quick, ease out. So you can probably figure out what the curve looks like for that. So rotate Y, select it. There we go. Starts off quick, eases out to a stop. And lastly, over here, close this up. Got a couple chess pieces just moving around the board. Let's hit play. Okay, so got to ease in, ease out, ease in, ease out, ease into a hard dead stop. So basically, any place you want to have impact, you have no ease. That's pretty much the rule. If a bowling ball's falling off a building, it doesn't ease before it hits the ground. If some kind of spaceship is landing on a moon and it's kind of settling on its thrusters, there's an ease into that. If you're reaching out to touch someone's doorbell, there's an ease to that. If you punch someone in the face, there's no ease to their reaction when they get hit. So just know where to use them and enjoy. Okay, so timing is the amount of time it takes to get from one pose to the next. By adjusting the timing, you can affect the weight, scale, and emotion of your characters. So if we look at our bouncing ball here, the contact positions would be our timing. And depending on how far or close we put these together, it would change the overall animation. If it was taking 10 frames to get from bounce 1 to bounce 2, that's a pretty quick bounce. It's a pretty light ball. If it's taking a minute to go from A to B, then that's probably like a bouncing planet. By adjusting the timing, you can help define the weight of an object and even what it's made out of. Timing can also contribute to the scale of an object or character. Large characters have more mass and it takes them longer to get from pose to pose, while small characters can zip around a scene very quickly. So a good way to think about this would be Cave Troll versus Stuart Little. Timing can really help you sell the emotion of a character. Different emotions have timings that we can easily relate to. You'll rarely see an exhausted person moving quickly, and you'll never see a guy that's paranoid relax in an easy chair. Okay, so let's hop over to MODO quickly and we'll take a look at timing in action. Okay, so I got a couple box animations here. Let's give them a viewing. Okay, so we just got a box, very linear move, just kind of bumps the other one, he kind of slides out of the way. No big whoop. So we'll stop that one. Turn off number 1, we'll put on number 2. We'll hit play on this one. So you can see he's hitting a little bit, he starts a little bit later and he ends a little bit late. He's going quicker than the other one. So we'll turn on number 3. Okay, so the important thing to notice about this scene is that the animations are all the same. It's just the timing that's been offset. They all start in the same place, they all make their contact at frame 40, and they all end at the same place. But if you just pick one and watch it, I'll just let it play, you can see, like if you watch the bottom one here, that cube feels a lot heavier than this one. For them to end up in the same place, this one has to be heavier because it's getting hit with way more force than this one. Right? That's why I've got these 3 examples in a folder called different weight. For these cubes to get hit at these varying rates, they can't end up in the same place if they all weighed the same. Okay, so I'm just going to stop this for a sec. We'll pop open the graph. We'll just grab these. Now, if you look at our position X, you can see what we got. So we have one starts at frame 1, it just goes straight to the end. We got one that starts a little bit later. We got another one that starts right now at 30. They all hit at frame 40 and then they go through. And same with these. If we look at box 1, so I'll select 1. Box 1 gets hit. It's a very kind of slow hit because it's not getting hit with much impact. Box 2 is a bit steeper arc, smaller spacing. It gets there quicker because it's getting hit quicker. This one gets here super quick, but it stops super quick, which would imply that it's heavier and there's more friction on the ground, or between it and the ground. So, like I was saying, all the same keys, just different timing, and you can see what a difference it has in the weighting of those objects. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the difference folder. I'll turn on the same weight folder. I'll close up the graph for a sec, and we'll hit play on this. So he just kind of clips it and he spins and does his thing. So I'll stop that. Now let's turn on box 2. So again, they're hitting it the same. They're both hitting at frame 40. But this one's getting hit with more weight. It's going, well, not more weight, sorry, more speed, which means it's going to go farther. And now because these boxes are both, say, 5 pounds, but it's getting hit with more weight, it has to go farther. So if I hit play on it, boom. So without even turning on the last one, you can expect how that's going to work out if it's the same weight. Let's see. Boom. Okay, so that's a pretty simple example, but I think it's a good one to show you how just by simply offsetting your timing, you can drastically affect the weight of an object. Okay, so that's weight. Let's go take a look at scale. Okay, so here we are. We got Simple Guy. There's this little bug thing on the table, and he hates bugs, so he's going to kill it. Boom. So there's not much going on here, just a few poses. I'll hop out to a perspective window so you can kind of see what's going on. So, no big whoop. So I'm going to extend my timeline out, and this is going to be a really over-the-top example of timing, and how if you space out your timing, it can really change the scale of your character. So I've taken this animation, and I've scaled it up by, I think, 250%, something like that. So I'm going to turn off this, I'll turn on this, and switch to this animation. It's the exact same animation, except I tweaked the head a little bit. And now let's look through a different camera. So now, it's the exact same animation we just saw, except the timing has all been spaced out. So let's see what we got. Boom! It's my Pacific Rim simple guy. So the example's kind of ridiculous, but I think it drives the point home that, spread your keys out if you want things to feel heavier and huger and bigger. I guess it's just like when you chase your kid, or if you chase a nephew or a niece, you run behind them, you make your steps big and slow, and you go "Urgh," to be an ogre. It's the same thing. So yeah, this example might be a little bit ridiculous, but I think it makes it easy to understand. Bigger timing, bigger characters. Okay, let's just take a quick look at how timing can affect emotion. So, simple guy's sitting here just chilling out in the park or on his deck. Just not really stressed out, not really doing much, so let's see what's up. Just kind of looks up, hears a noise, looks around. Not much happening. Pull this in a bit. So yeah, so he's happy. Just kind of whatever, no stress, just looking around. Pretty neutral. And you can see his timing is pretty spaced out. What happens if we take this stuff and start crushing it together? So I actually don't want to lose this action. I like it and I like to come back to it. So what we can do is we'll take this and we're just going to duplicate it. We'll call it stress. And okay. So now I'm in the stress one. So if I start moving keys in here, you see he's going to perk up into this pose a lot quicker. So we're sliding all this stuff. So now let's see what he's doing. Definitely, it's the exact same poses, just with shifted timing, and he definitely seems a bit more attentive. Like something's going on. Could probably push that even more. Just a few frames there, a few frames there. This is going to be really fast now. He's stressed. But yeah, again, another example of how just adjusting some timing can totally change the whole mood of the character. Before he was super chilled out. If we go back to sitting, take a peek. Lazy Sunday. Just checking out the neighbors. And if we go to stress, he's looking at all the kids run on his lawn. Stress. But yeah. Timing affecting emotion.